My parents want me to give my apartment to my sister because she's starting a family and needs it more than a single person. Hi everyone! Today's story will blow your mind, but really quick, if you enjoy this content, hit that subscribe button. Channel's been a bit quiet lately, and your support keeps it all going. Let's jump in. I'm a 26-year-old man caught in what feels like an impossible situation with my family. I purchased my apartment 2 years ago after saving diligently since college graduation. It's a modest 2-bedroom in a nice neighborhood with great amenities. Nothing extravagant, but it's mine, and I'm proud of it. My twin sister, Jessica, recently got engaged to her boyfriend of 3 years. They're planning to get married next summer, and while I'm happy for her, this engagement has created an unexpected problem in our family. Last weekend, my parents invited me over for dinner. I assumed it was just a normal family gathering, but it quickly became apparent they had an agenda. After dessert, my father cleared his throat and launched into a speech about family responsibility and looking out for each other. My mother nodded along enthusiastically as he spoke, and I had a sinking feeling about where this was heading. "James," my father said, "your sister is starting her life now. She's getting married, and they're planning to have children soon. They need a stable home." I nodded, unsure what he was getting at. Then my mother joined in. "We think it would be the right thing for you to let Jessica and Mark have your apartment." I nearly choked on my coffee. "What do you mean, have my apartment?" "Well, transfer it to them," my father clarified, as if he were asking me to lend them a book. "You're single, and you don't need that much space. Jessica is starting a family. She needs it more than you do." I was completely blindsided. The apartment I had saved for, that I had furnished carefully, that had become my sanctuary after long workdays, they expected me to just hand it over? "I worked hard for that apartment," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I saved for years while living in a tiny studio. It's not just about space, it's mine." My mother sighed with disappointment. "James, don't be selfish. Your sister needs stability for her future children. You can find another place easily. You only have yourself to worry about." That comment stung more than I expected. The implication that my life somehow mattered less because I wasn't currently in a relationship or planning for children cut deep. Jessica wasn't even at this dinner, which made it worse. Had she put them up to this? Was this her idea? I couldn't believe she would ask for something like this. My father continued talking about family duty and sacrifice while my mother added emotional appeals about future nieces and nephews. When I didn't immediately agree, their tone shifted from persuasive to disappointed. By the time I left, I felt like I was the villain for not wanting to give away my home. On the drive back to my apartment, I called Jessica. She answered on the third ring, sounding cheerful until I asked if she knew about our parents' request. "Oh," she said, her voice instantly changing. "They told you about that. So you knew." I felt betrayed that she hadn't warned me. "They mentioned the idea to me last week," she admitted. "I told them it wasn't necessary, but, your place would be perfect for us, especially with a second bedroom for a nursery." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Jess, I bought that apartment. I work hard to pay the mortgage. It's my home." I know, she backpedaled, "but you have to admit it makes sense from a practical standpoint. You're not using the second bedroom for anything important, and Mark and I are struggling to find a place in our price range in a good school district." The conversation went downhill from there. Jessica didn't explicitly ask me to give her my apartment, but she didn't reject the idea either. She kept talking about what makes sense for the family, and how I could easily find a bachelor pad downtown. I ended the call feeling completely devalued. It's like my achievement in buying my own place wasn't an accomplishment at all, but rather a temporary holding pattern until someone with real adult needs came along. Am I being selfish? Should I consider what they're asking? I've worked so hard for this place, and I have my own plans for the future, even if they don't include marriage right now. The second bedroom serves as my home office, and I've invested in making it functional for my remote work. I can't help feeling that if the situations were reversed, if I were the one engaged and Jessica were single, no one would ever suggest she give up her home for me. It feels like they see my life choices as less valid or important. I don't know what to do. My parents have been calling and texting non-stop since that dinner, alternating between guilt trips and practical arguments about why this makes sense. I haven't responded yet because I'm still trying to process everything. Should I stand my ground? How do I make them understand that my home isn't just a commodity to be redistributed based on someone else's life events? Update: my parents gave my sister a key to my apartment without my permission. It's been about 2 weeks since my last post, and things have escalated in ways I never imagined possible. First, Thank you to everyone who commented on my original post. Reading your responses helped me see that I wasn't overreacting, and I wasn't being selfish for wanting to keep my own property. Many of you suggested I have a clear conversation with my family to establish boundaries, which I attempted to do. I invited my parents and Jessica over for dinner last weekend, thinking a calm discussion in my apartment might help them understand what this place means to me. I spent the day cleaning and preparing a nice meal, hoping to demonstrate that this wasn't just about the property value, but about the home I've created. The dinner started cordially enough. We ate, made small talk, and I even gave a little tour, showing them the renovations I'd completed in the bathroom and the custom shelving I'd installed in the living room. I thought maybe seeing the personal touches would help them understand my attachment. After dinner, I broached the subject directly. I wanted to talk about what you suggested at dinner 2 weeks ago, I began. I understand that Jessica and Mark are looking for a place, but this is my home. I worked hard for it, and I'm not willing to give it up. My mother immediately teared up. I just don't understand why you're being so difficult about this. Family helps family. My father was more direct. Son, sometimes in life we need to make sacrifices for the greater good. Jessica will be raising children here. What's more important than that? My life is important too, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. My choices matter, even if they're different from Jessica's. Jessica, who had been quiet until then, finally spoke up. James, no one's trying to devalue your life. But you have to admit, this place would be perfect for us. The school district is excellent, and the park across the street would be ideal for kids. That's part of why I bought it, I pointed out. I chose this neighborhood carefully, just like I chose everything else about this apartment. The conversation went in circles for nearly an hour. My parents kept returning to the same arguments: family obligation, Jessica's greater need, the practicality of me finding somewhere else more suitable for a bachelor. I held firm, repeatedly stating that the apartment was mine and not up for discussion. Eventually, they seemed to accept my decision, though not happily. My mother was still sniffling as they prepared to leave, and my father gave me a disappointed look that I recognized from childhood mishaps. I thought that was the end of it, until yesterday. I came home from work early due to a migraine. As I approached my door, I heard voices inside my apartment. Confused and concerned, I quietly used my key and opened the door to find Jessica, Mark, and my mother in my living room. Jessica was showing Mark the spare bedroom, gesturing to the walls and saying, "We could paint this pale yellow for the nursery." They froze when they saw me. My mother recovered first, smiling as if nothing was wrong. "James, we didn't expect you home so early. How did you get into my apartment?" I asked, my migraine suddenly forgotten. My mother waved dismissively. "Oh, we made a copy of your key a while back, for emergencies." "You made a copy of my key without telling me?" I was stunned. Jessica stepped in. "Don't make a big deal out of this. Mom and Dad have keys to my place too. We're family." "That's different," I said. "You gave them a key." "I didn't." Mark looked uncomfortable, shifting his weight from foot to foot. "Maybe we should go," he suggested quietly. "No," Jessica said firmly. "We're just looking. James, be reasonable. We're not doing any harm." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You're in my home without permission, planning how to redecorate it, after I explicitly said I'm not giving it to you." My mother sighed dramatically. "We were hoping you'd change your mind once you had time to think. Jessica and Mark put in an offer on a house yesterday, but it was rejected. They're running out of options, and the wedding is coming up fast." "That's not my problem," I said, immediately regretting how harsh it sounded, but unable to take it back. Jessica's eyes welled with tears. "Wow. I never thought my own twin would be so selfish." "Selfish?" I echoed. "You're in MY home without MY permission, planning to take it over, and I'm selfish?" Things devolved quickly after that. There was shouting, crying, mostly from my mother and Jessica, and eventually they left, but not before my mother said something that's been echoing in my head ever since: "I raised you better than this. I'm so disappointed in the man you've become." After they left, I sat in my apartment, my violated home, feeling a mix of anger, betrayal, and doubt. Had I overreacted? Was I being unreasonable? But the more I thought about it, the more certain I became that I was in the right. This is my home, purchased with my money, and no one has the right to demand I give it up. I changed the locks this morning. I'm not sure what my next steps should be. Part of me wants to cut contact for a while, but another part worries about permanent damage to our family relationships. My sister and I have always been close despite our differences, and the thought of losing that connection hurts. I've decided not to attend the weekly family dinner this Sunday. I need space to think and process everything that's happened. I'm also considering talking to a lawyer, just to make sure there are no legal loopholes my family might try to exploit. It sounds paranoid, but after finding them in my apartment, I don't know what to expect anymore. Should I try to repair things with my family, or is some distance necessary right now? And how do I make it absolutely clear that my apartment is not an option for Jessica and Mark without completely ruining our relationship? Update: 3 months later. Legal consultation and family fallout. It's been 3 months since my last update, and while things have settled into an uneasy truce, there have been significant developments I wanted to share. After changing my locks, I spent a few weeks maintaining minimal contact with my family. The distance gave me clarity, and I realized how violated I felt by their actions. Not just the unauthorized entry into my home, but the fundamental disrespect for my autonomy and life choices. Many of you suggested consulting a lawyer, which initially seemed excessive. However, after finding a business card from a real estate agent on my kitchen counter, apparently left during their unauthorized visit, I decided it was better to be cautious. I scheduled a consultation with a property attorney who specialized in family disputes. She was reassuring but also eye-opening about potential vulnerabilities. Since I purchased the property entirely in my name with no financial assistance from family, my legal position was solid. However, she advised documenting any further incidents and ensuring all communication about the apartment was in writing. Family disputes can get messy, she warned. People who feel entitled to your property might escalate in ways you wouldn't expect. She also suggested I check my credit report and place a freeze on new credit applications, just as a precaution. I followed her advice and was relieved to find no unexpected activity. With legal reassurance, I felt more confident addressing the situation directly. I invited my parents to meet at a neutral location, a coffee shop downtown. Jessica wasn't invited. I wanted to speak with my parents alone first. The meeting was tense from the start. My father maintained that I was overreacting about the key incident, while my mother alternated between guilt-tripping and attempting to justify their actions as just trying to help Jessica visualize the space. I remained calm and stated my position clearly. What you did was a violation of my privacy and my trust. The apartment is my home and my property. It's not available for Jessica, not now, not in the future. But families share, my mother insisted. When your grandfather passed, he left his tools to both your father and your uncle, not just one of them. This isn't the same, I responded. Those were inherited items. I purchased my apartment with my own money. No one helped me with the down payment, no one co-signed the mortgage, and no one subsidizes my monthly payments. My father, always more pragmatic, seemed to finally understand the legal reality. So you're saying there's absolutely no chance you'll reconsider? Even as a wedding present? None, I confirmed. And I need you both to respect that boundary. No more discussions about it, no more suggestions, and absolutely no more unauthorized entries. I then slid an envelope across the table. Inside was a formal cease and desist letter my lawyer had helped me draft. It wasn't legally binding in the strictest sense, but it documented my explicit withdrawal of any implied permission they might claim to enter my property. My mother gasped when she realized what it was. You're threatening us with legal action? Your own parents. I'm establishing clear boundaries, I corrected. If you respect them, this letter means nothing. If you don't, it becomes evidence. My father turned red but remained silent as he read the document. Finally, he folded it precisely and placed it back in the envelope. Message received, he said coldly. The meeting ended shortly after, with my mother in tears and my father barely containing his anger. It wasn't the resolution I'd hoped for, but at least the boundaries were crystal clear. Jessica's reaction was even more dramatic. She called me that evening, alternating between rage and tearful accusations of betrayal. You're choosing property over family, she kept saying, as if my apartment was just a material possession rather than my home. I explained my position one final time, then told her I needed space from the entire situation. We haven't spoken much since, beyond necessary family communications. Her wedding is in 2 months, and while I'm still invited, there's a palpable tension whenever we interact. Mark, surprisingly, reached out to me privately last week. We met for a beer, and he confessed that he'd been uncomfortable with the whole situation from the start. I told Jessica we should just focus on finding our own place, he admitted. But once your parents got involved, it took on a life of its own. He also shared that they'd recently been approved for a mortgage and were in escrow on a starter home across town. It's smaller than my apartment and in a less prestigious school district, but it's within their budget and needs minimal renovation. Jessica's still upset, he said before leaving, but I think once we move in and make it our own, she'll realize it's better this way. No one wants to live in a home where they're not wanted. His words have been echoing in my mind. No one wants to live in a home where they're not wanted. I wonder if my family understands that's exactly how they made me feel in my own apartment. Unwanted, as if my claim to my own home was temporary and contingent on someone else not wanting it more. For now, things remain fragile. I've maintained the boundaries I set, which has resulted in fewer family gatherings and more one-on-one meetings with extended family who aren't directly involved in the conflict. Some relatives think I'm being harsh. Others have quietly expressed support for my position. My apartment feels like mine again, secure with new locks and the knowledge that I've defended my right to it. The experience has changed my relationship with my family in ways I'm still processing, but I know I made the right decision standing my ground. I'm planning to attend Jessica's wedding next month, hoping we can begin to repair our relationship. But I'll never again allow my family to devalue my choices or my right to the home I've worked so hard to create. Final update: 6 months later, boundaries established, property secured, family relations transformed. It's been 6 months since my last update, and I felt it was time to share how everything has resolved. So much has changed, both with my property situation and my family dynamics. Jessica's wedding took place 4 months ago. In the weeks leading up to it, our interactions remained strained but civil. I decided to attend with an open heart, hoping that her happy day might provide an opportunity for healing. The ceremony was beautiful, and during the reception, I gave a brief but heartfelt toast that focused on our childhood memories and my hopes for her future happiness. I made no mention of our conflict, and neither did anyone else, at least not publicly. After the ceremony, Jessica pulled me aside. It was our first real conversation in months that wasn't tense or logistical. "Thank you for coming," she said, looking genuinely relieved. "And for the toast. It meant a lot." "You're my sister," I replied simply. "I wouldn't miss your wedding." There was an awkward pause before she continued. "Mark and I move into our new house next week. It's not what we initially wanted, but it's ours. We've been painting and fixing it up." "That's great," I said, surprised by her change in tone. "Starting fresh in your own space is a good feeling." She nodded, then looked down at her wedding ring, twisting it nervously. "I'm sorry about what happened with your apartment. I got caught up in what Mom and Dad were saying about how perfect it would be for us, and I didn't think about how it would feel from your perspective." It wasn't a complete acknowledgement of how wrong their actions had been, but it was a start. I accepted her partial apology with a hug, and we silently agreed to move forward. My parents took longer to come around. For 2 months after our coffee shop confrontation, our interactions were purely transactional. They'd call and ask to speak with Jessica or comment on family news, treating me with a distant politeness that was almost worse than anger. The turning point came unexpectedly. My company announced a potential relocation package for employees willing to transfer to our Seattle office. It was an exciting opportunity that I seriously considered, though ultimately decided against. Before making my decision, I mentioned it in passing during a conversation with my aunt, who apparently told my parents. My father called me that same evening. His voice lacked the coldness of recent months. "Your aunt mentioned you might be moving to Seattle," he said, an unfamiliar note of concern in his voice. "I'm considering it," I replied, surprised by his interest. "Is this because of what happened? Are you leaving to get away from us?" I hadn't expected such directness. "No, it's a career opportunity. But I'd be lying if I said recent events haven't made me think about what I want in life, including where I live." There was a long pause. "Son, I've been thinking a lot about everything. We handled the situation with your apartment poorly. Very poorly." It wasn't quite an apology, but coming from my father, it was significant. "Yes, you did," I agreed, not making it easier for him. "Your mother and we had certain expectations about how life would unfold for both you and your sister. When Jessica followed the path we anticipated and you chose differently, we didn't adjust our thinking. We still saw your life as temporary, as if you were just waiting to catch up to where your sister was." For the first time, I felt he truly understood. "My life isn't on hold, Dad. It's happening right now, every day, in that apartment." "I know that now," he said quietly. "And I'm sorry we didn't respect that." We talked for nearly an hour, more openly than we had in years. He revealed that he and my mother had been seeing a family therapist to work through their reactions to my boundary setting. The therapist had helped them recognize patterns of favoritism and different expectations they'd held for Jessica and me throughout our lives. 2 weeks later, I met my parents for dinner. My mother was more emotional but equally contrite. "We never meant to make you feel less important," she said, tears in her eyes. "We just got so caught up in Jessica's traditional life path that we forgot there are many ways to build a meaningful life." It was surreal hearing them acknowledge the exact issue I'd felt but couldn't quite articulate all these years. As for the practical matters, they returned all copies of my key, including one I hadn't even known about that they'd given to my aunt for emergencies, and signed an agreement I drafted acknowledging my sole ownership of the apartment. It might seem excessive to some, but after what had happened, I needed that formal acknowledgement. Jessica and Mark have settled into their new home. It's smaller than my apartment, but in a neighborhood that's rapidly improving. They've invited me over several times, and I've watched as they've transformed it into a space that reflects their personalities. Last month, they announced they're expecting their first child, and the second bedroom is now being converted into a nursery. Their nursery, in their home. My relationship with my sister is healing gradually. We may never be as close as we once were, but there's a new respect between us. She no longer makes dismissive comments about my bachelor lifestyle, and I make an effort to show interest in her home improvements and pregnancy preparations. As for my apartment, I've made some changes of my own. I renovated the kitchen with new countertops and appliances, painted the living room a deep blue that I've always loved, and fully converted the second bedroom into a proper home office now that I'm working remotely 3 days a week. These changes have made it feel even more distinctly mine, a physical affirmation that this space belongs to me and reflects my choices. The most unexpected outcome of this entire ordeal has been my relationship with other family members. Several cousins have confided in me about similar experiences with family pressure and favoritism. It seems my standing firm inspired others to examine their own boundaries. One cousin even moved across the country partly because of the conversations we had about prioritizing our own life paths over family expectations. My parents still occasionally slip into their old patterns, making comments about how the apartment would be perfect for a family, or suggesting I'll change my mind about my living situation when I meet the right person. But now I can address these comments directly, and they're learning to catch themselves. Last week, my father actually said something that showed how far we've come. We were having dinner at my place, and he remarked, "You've really made this apartment special. It suits you perfectly." Coming from him, those words meant everything. Looking back on this journey, I realize it was never really about the apartment itself. It was about my right to define my own life, to have my choices respected, and to establish boundaries even with the people closest to me. It was about recognizing that my life has value on its own terms, not just as a placeholder until I conform to someone else's expectations. I still own my apartment, and now everyone in my family truly understands that it's mine, not just legally, but emotionally and spiritually as well. It's the place where I've claimed my independence, not just from landlords, but from the weight of family expectations. Thank you to everyone who supported me through this journey. Your advice and encouragement helped me find the strength to stand my ground when it would have been easier to give in. I hope my story might help others facing similar situations to recognize that it's possible to maintain both healthy boundaries and family connections, even when the process is painful.